Alright, so what is up guys? Welcome to my first video on Flutter, and in this video I'm going to be going over the basic layout for when you start a new project, and we're also going to build this very simple app which allows us to click on a floating action button, and each time we click on it, it will increment the amount of times in the application shown on this text view, and you can do that as many times as you want, and it will continuously update the UI. So that's all I'm going to be showing you in this tutorial, but we're going to be going over the basic layout so that you can start a new project next time with a better understanding. But let's go ahead and get started by creating a new Flutter project. So I'm going to be using Android Studio, and I downloaded everything necessary to start a new Flutter project. In case you don't have any of this, you should go and read the Flutter documentation on how to install it. There's a Flutter plugin available, and then you need to download the SDK. But once you have everything set up, we can go ahead and click on Flutter application, and it's going to ask us for a project name, which we're going to just name Flutter app YouTube. And of course, then you need to specify an SDK path, which you could also do by installing over here. But I already have mine. It's the stable version of Flutter, and it will specify a project location and a project description. But let's just click on next. It will ask you for a package name, which for me is going to be com.codepalace.flutterappyoutube. But of course, you can change the middle section with your own username. And let's move on. Let's finish and let's create a new project. And as soon as it loads, you should have this sample project, which if you go ahead and click on run, I'm going to show you exactly what it looks like. Allora, aspettiamo, quasi ci siamo. And this is the application you should have as a default in your Flutter project, which does the exact same task as what we built earlier. But since when you start this project, it provides you with a lot of documentation, we just want to get rid of all of this and start from scratch. So we will just delete everything and we will start with the basics, which is import the package, which is going to be the package of Flutter. And we want to get the material components. So that's going to be material.dart. And since we are using Dart for this, we're going to have to remember to add the semicolons at the end of statements. The next thing we want to do is create a function that runs the app, and that's going to be the main function. So we just have to create it like this, with this small symbol over here, the small arrow, and we're going to type in run app, which is going to take our app as an argument. So we're going to type in new my app, and we're going to add the semicolon at the end. And it's going to give us an error because this class does not exist yet. But we're going to create that immediately down below. And this is going to be the base or the root of the application. So here we go, class my app extends stateless widget. And stateless widget just means it's going to be a static component, which means if you have a background color, a bar that doesn't move, any component that doesn't move will be considered a stateless widget. So it's something that's already set ahead of time that doesn't get updated necessarily. And inside here, as you can see, we still have the arrow, so we can just type in create one missing override, which will override the widget build.context. And we can just delete the content inside, because what we want to do inside here is return a new material app. And the first thing we want to provide inside here is a title, which will be, let's go for Hello Code Palace. And then we should give it a theme. Then we should give it a theme below. And inside here, we will call theme data and get the primary swatch, or set the primary swatch to any color you prefer. I'm going to just go for colors.green this time. And then under that, we're going to go ahead and set a home page. So this is the first page we land on, and essentially what you should see when you open the app. So home, and then we need to provide a home page, which we are going to create later, but we're just going to call it my home page for now. And it's going to take one argument, which is a title, which we're going to call hello app with an exclamation mark. And then we just need to remember to add a semicolon at the bottom so we can get rid of the error and show the program that this is actually just one line. Now we need to create another class called my home page, of course, and that's going to extend stateful widget, which means we'll have lots of action happening here. And the first thing we need to specify is the my home page key, which is going to take a key of type key. And we want to get the title, which is going to be this dot title. Then we're going to add 2 dots and type in super key and add a semicolon. Then we need to create the string of title, so final string title, and that should get rid of the error over here soon. And I just realized that I have been building this in the wrong spot, so you want to make sure that each class begins on a new line. So now we only have the error here and everything else should look fine. Then below this class, we're going to go ahead and create another class called my home page state. And that's going to extend the state of my home page. Then we have to open up a set of curly brackets. And I did not mean to put this together. It should actually be like that. So inside here, we're going to first create an int, which is called counter. And we're going to set that to 0. Then we want to create a function that increments that counter. And I forgot this semicolon, so let's make sure we put that there. So void, which means it just returns nothing essentially. Increment count, and we want to open that up. And inside here, we're going to set the state, which will tell it what to do. And we just want to update the UI by incrementing the counter. So every time we increment the counter, the UI updates as well. Then we have to go back to my homepage class because we need to create an override. So we're going to type it at override, and right below we'll type in my homepage state. And we want to create this state. So we'll type in create state, and we want it to execute this. So we'll just type in my homepage state. And we have to add a semicolon. So this class right here will just take care of making sure all of the functions actually update the UI. Then we have the final part, which is to create the one missing override, which is the build one. And this build one is just going to give us an actual layout, let's say. So let's go ahead and destroy whatever's inside. We can just keep the build context.context. And we want to return a scaffold, which will hold all of the code that we want to display. And the first thing we want is an app bar, and we can just call app bar, and that's going to take a title, which we will just set to a text and widget.title. So it will just take what we put up there earlier, and it will take this and it will place it inside the action bar or the app bar. Although we do not need this comma here. Then under that, we want to create a body, and we shall center it. So we'll just call center. And inside here, we can create a child, which is going to be a column. And then we need to go ahead and type in main axis alignment. And that's going to take the main axis alignment, and we want to call dot center so we can center it nicely. Then we need to call children. But before it, we have to go ahead and say widgets. So inside here, we can add some text, such as text, the button has been pressed with a colon. And we can add another text field right below that. So we'll type in text, and we can interpolate just like we did in Kotlin a long time ago. Just add a dollar symbol, call the counter, and say times. Then we also want to add a style, which is going to equal a new text style because we want it to be a bit bigger than the previous text. We just want to increase the font size to 30. But now that all that is left is to create a floating action button. So right under center, we're going to go ahead and type in floating action button, and we want to give it some padding. So we'll start with padding. So the first thing is padding, and that's going to be a constant of edge insets dot only, and we want to start by saying we want the right to be 24 away, and we want the bottom to be also 24 away, and that will give us some more space between the right and the bottom. Then we have to create a child, which is going to be a floating action button, and we want to give it an onPressed function. So finally we can show the program that we want to increase the count. So we'll type in increment counter every time we click on this button. Then we'll give it a tooltip, which will say increment. And right below that, we have to write child. So we can add an icon, and it's going to be the plus icon. So all you have to do is call icon, and inside here, icons.add. And then at the bottom of the scaffold, remember to add the semicolon, and we should be good to go. But let's go ahead and click on the play button and see what happens. So as you can see, once we start the program, you should have something similar to this, which is a green button in the bottom right-hand corner, a floating action button, and it has some extra space compared to the default app. Then you have a bigger text, which says 0 times, and each time you click on it, it increments the counter because we're clicking on something that updates the entire view. And that's why we have my homepage state over here in the stateful widget section. But with that being said, I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.